Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can't say that took very long, and honestly, I'm not too shocked to read this sort of news, knowing that the people who truly run Kotaku at the end of the day are the activists that have been running it into the ground for the last few years now, and they seemingly got their way. We have a headline here from Bounding Into Comics that reads, Kotaku owners Geo Media reportedly backed down from fully shifting site from news to guides after editor-in-chief resigns and the staff pushes back.
I am never going to financially recover from this.
Now, to my knowledge, this headline's just a little bit wrong, only because Kotaku never said they were going to completely go away from news. They were just going to deprioritize news and try to focus on guides, tips, and tricks and all that stuff. But yes, it looks like the activists within Kotaku are doing exactly what they're good at, which is holding the company by the fire, essentially, and trying to threaten them in anything they can in order to get their way. So let's get into this article, guys, from Bounding Into Comics. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. So it says, in barely recovering from what seemed and honestly still seems like the first step of a funeral procession for the infamous bad faith video game news website Kotaku, owners Geo Media have reportedly backed down from their desire to pivot the site's content away from news stories and towards generic video games after facing a rash of backlash from its staff. Now, really quick, before we get into the article further, ladies and gentlemen, I am not surprised by this at all. Okay, if you guys have been paying attention on Twitter, honestly, even if you're not paying attention, because it's going so viral, all of these things that are happening is going so viral that you could literally not even be trying to look for it, and you'll find it at some point in time. All the writers at Kotaku have been absolutely melting down. I am talking like massive meltdowns. Alyssa Mercante melting down. Carolyn Petit melting down. You got the editor-in-chief quitting over it. You got 7 other writers quitting over it. The absolute meltdown has been insane over at Kotaku, and what we're witnessing is one of the first casualties of many to come from Gamergate 2.0. And I didn't think Kotaku was going to be one of the first ones, but I mean, here we are. So the absolute meltdown is not too shocking to me, and I'm not shocked that they're going to try to, take it back or whatever the case may be. I just wonder, what's Jen Glennon going to do now that she quit? If they're supposedly rolling it back, is she going to stay, away from Kotaku? Is she going to come back? Are they going to allow her to come back? I really don't know. Half of this just feels like it was purposeful to try to get all these woke losers to quit themselves, essentially, from the company. So let's get into the actual part of what happened before we continue from there. So this tumultuous situation within Kotaku's offices was first made public on March 21st when the site's now former editor-in-chief, Jen Glennon, announced her resignation from the outlet via Twitter. Some personal news, she exclaimed. I resigned from Kotaku and Geo Media. Jim Spanfeller is a herb. So we already kind of went over this. Let's get into the part where it's actually important. We have it right here. You have some people complaining about the fact that their livelihoods are being destroyed, by the way, which I think are hilarious, and I've made fun of this person so much that he blocked me, so them decided to block me. However, it seems that this extreme pivot was short-lived. As per Kotaku editor Alyssa Mercante, following Glennon's resignation and the resulting outrage from site staff over the new editorial focus, Kotaku staff had a somewhat productive meeting with management, and thus readers can expect news to continue coming from us, at least for now. Your support and your voices certainly helped, she added, so thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it seems like they had a conversation with management and they probably convinced them and begged them to let them continue their activism. I can hear it. Even from here, I can hear it. Alyssa Mercante sitting down at the table with the management over at Geo Media and saying, guys, you don't understand how important our work is and what we do for the social space. You don't understand how important it is to continue fighting the good fight against these bigoted gamers. We have a bunch of racists and homophobes that you're going to let win if you don't let us do our news. We need to do our news. And I promise you, I'll bring you the biggest article you ever have. I'm going to make an announcement today that I'm openly making a story against Melanie Mack. I'm telling you, it may sound like a conspiracy theory, but I promise you that's probably how it went, almost word for word. She is going to use the Melanie Mack article that she is culminating right now. She's going to use that to try to bolster her reason for letting news continue to be news on Kotaku but out there, I feel like this is a stalemate right now, right? I feel like it's a stalemate between the Kotaku writers that are activists and the management that want to shift the company. There's a stalemate right now, and Alyssa Mercante is going to try to do the shot in the sky that's going to break the stalemate, and that shot in the sky is going to be her article on Melanie Mack. If she can get that article out, if she could get that story out, and it hits from so many people making fun of her, that's going to essentially prove her point. And she's going to say, look at these analytics. They're so amazing. Look at all the people that came to Kotaku. We need to keep doing stuff like this. It's the same reason why they started doing stuff like this in the first place. They realized that the only way they could get any clicks, the only way they could get any sort of viewership on Kotaku is by doing some absolutely insane articles and pieces, hit pieces essentially, against certain people. Anything but gaming essentially. Then they said, as of writing, it is unknown just how much of the site will remain dedicated to the news and how much of it will shift its attention to guides. Now, if you actually go to Kotaku's main site, you'll realize that it's actually been changed heavily towards the guides and the tips and tricks and whatnot. The news have been deprioritized and the guides and tips and tricks have been prioritized. I don't know if that's going to be switched now that they had this conversation with management supposedly, but I mean, what are all these losers going to do? Every single, like this person, Levi Winslow, the guy just completely lost his mind over the fact that he's got to actually play video games and he can't write about activism. Mr. They, them in his bio, Mr. Every single pronoun imaginable, every single social justice emoji imaginable in his bio, he can't imagine having to play games. I don't understand how these people can get away with this and still have a job. I mean, it goes to show that once you go down the DEI hiring rabbit hole, you kind of trap yourself, right? Because you can't fire these people. You can't fire a they, them. You can't fire a tranny. You can't fire a black person that was hired for diversity. You can't fire any of these people because if you do, you're just going to be open to a lawsuit. So then what do? You just let them rock? It starts to get a little ridiculous after a while, and it goes to show where they're at right now in terms of Kotaku. Now, the funny thing is, this person right here, Levi, and all of these writers, imagine you work somewhere, right? Let's say you're a mechanic and your boss says, hey, I need you to work on this car. And you say, I don't want to work on this car. I shouldn't be forced to have to work on this car. I want to actually go do paperwork. I want to go do computer work. I want to do anything else other than the job you were hired for. How long do you think you're going to have that job before you are ousted from that position? Not very long, right? But apparently when it comes to social media or writing for a games journalist, right? Games journalist, whatever word you want to call them, ultimately, I think it's ridiculous that these people can actually actively not do their job and keep their job. It's just such a backwards thing for me. But, you know, let's be real. When it comes to diversity hiring, it's backwards anyway. They're not being hired on merit. They're not being hired for the work they can do. What work can they actually do that nobody else can do? Let's be real. These people aren't any special. They're not special on anything. They only provide one thing and one thing only. It allows Kotaku to say, hey, we have a whole bunch of non-binary people who work for us. Or, hey, we have a whole bunch of women who work for us. Or, hey, we have a whole bunch of black people who work for us. Because we're a very diverse company. We believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we want to make sure that our values are represented in the employees that we have. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.